Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try this again. Good evening, everyone. It's so good to have you here tonight and welcome you to Mount Moriah and our 20th community forum that we've hosted for our elected officials who are running for office. Gives us an opportunity to see them and they see us and answer some questions. So in time that we're living in now, we need to know who it is we're electing for our local office. It all begins at this local level. So let's give all our candidates a round of applause tonight. Thank you so much. If you would, got the agenda, and our moderator is Miss Tanya Rivens. I'm so glad to have her. She's been with us 18 times out of 20. Let's give her a round of applause. Pastor Luke, if you would come and open us up with prayer and introduce Tanya.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, commissioners, for coming. I appreciate y'all sitting in the firing line. You look good there. Let us pray together. Lord, I am grateful for the beauty of this night, for the beauty of this season. I'm grateful for everyone who is here. I'm grateful for these commissioners, these candidates who have come and who care deeply about this community, who care about this town, who care about faith, who care about race, who care about past injustices and current injustices. And Lord, we're grateful for all the decisions they will make on our behalf. We're thankful for Tanya and all the time she's been out with us. We're thankful for her presence among us. We're thankful for all of these churches that gather. And an important evening when we do hear from our leaders and pick our leaders. We ask you to bless our conversation, bless our questions, bless our discussion, that we can discern your will for our community, and that we can have the courage to go out there, all of us, not just those we elect, all of us, to go out there and live it. In Jesus' name we pray. I'm going to be the... Did I turn that off? Thank you. Now. I'm going to be the timekeeper. I'm a nice guy, I promise, but when the time's up, I'm going to yell gong or something, all right? And I think we decided, 90 seconds? Yeah, 90 seconds per question. That gives y'all enough time. You have to be succinct, but don't be a preacher up there. Don't sit up there and do a sermon. So Tanya's been with us, how many? 18 of 20 times, I think. So she's an old friend to this community, and her presence means a lot. So Tanya Rivens, thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Pastor Luke. Let's give our Matthews area clergy a round of applause for continuing to do this. Come on, let's give them a little bit more love than that, simply because as I was sitting here thinking with our radio station, and I'll make this really quick, I'm with Praise 100.9, and I'm at WCCB TV, but we have a whole series called People of Purpose, and I'm sitting here thinking, wow, the group of clergy here in Matthews, I've said it over and over, I'm a fan, and they're putting the work in, and certainly they should be recognized for the work that they're doing. So that's just a thought that was running through my mind. I also want to recognize, of course, the area clergy. You know, Pastor David Christie, Pastor Luke Mabry, Pastor Larry W. Whitley, and Pastor John Moritzen. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But for our area ministries to come together, it's been my prayer, especially this year, that our ministers are covered with so much going on and all the work and what we're dealing with in our nation today. And along those lines, I want you to applaud these candidates, because we've got all these candidates, people that are willing to serve the community, and we don't find that a lot. So let's give them a round of applause just for having the heart to serve as we get started. And the first thing we're going to do, Pastor Luke already stated that, is we're going to allow you to introduce yourselves. And you've got 90 seconds, that's a minute and a half, to tell us about yourself and why you are running for office. And you have an outline, and the way this is run is we have some prepared questions, and then we'll do open questions and comments, and we'll try and stay on schedule as much as we can. So if it's okay, if we'll start right here with Miss Jennifer Garrity and kind of work our way down. I see the mayor in the center, but we'll work our way down and kind of go back and forth that way. but allow you to go ahead and introduce yourself and explain why you are running for office. And you have microphones that you may have to share, like 2 or 3, as you work your way, and let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you here tonight. As Tanya indicated, my name is Jennifer Garrity. I have lived in Matthews for over 20 years. I've been involved with the Matthews Chamber. I have raised my kids here, and I have a business. I'm the owner of co-owner of Garrity & Gossage, which is a law firm in Matthews. As a resident, I have enjoyed so many of the things Matthews has to offer. My kids have enjoyed many of the things Matthews has to offer: summer camps, classes, festivals. As a business owner, has been a great place to work. I've been in Matthews for just about 20 years as well, and I love Matthews. It's a place that I have enjoyed living. I've enjoyed raising my kids. I enjoy working. I want to be a part of continuing to keep the safe, family-friendly atmosphere that has been home for the last 20 years, and want to continue to be a part of watching it grow in a manner that is positive for the residents while we're still maintaining that safe, family-friendly environment. So I look forward to having the opportunity to serve, and I'm excited to be a part of this great slate of candidates. Thank you so much.
My name is Brian Hacker. I guess I'm probably a relatively new Matthews person. I lived here since 2012, so that may be new for a lot of you. But my wife has lived in Matthews since 1999. She went to Queen's University, so she's an old-timer. I have 3 daughters, one who lived with us, 2 who lived with their mom, so she's been in Matthews, grew up in Matthews. I am an educator. I'm a teacher, high school teacher, going back next week. We're getting our classrooms all set up. So I've got that experience with that. The reason I ran is I've loved living in Matthews. I come from California, Los Angeles area, big, large, urban area, and got out here to Matthews, and it's this small town, well, not really small, but a small town that has this feeling. But it's a great place. Bring up a family. It's a great place to have a business. And I want to keep that moving forward and make sure that we can still have that small feel with a great growth of a city, town. And I just want to make sure that we all understand that and that we can all come together and make wise choices. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Pastor Whitley. I want to thank his staff and church members for allowing us to be here this evening. And I look forward to talking with some of you and working towards November 4th.
My name is John Urban, and first I'd like to thank Tanya, as always. We've been at this for several years. Larry, as always, and the wonderful staff at Mount Moriah, and Luke Mabry, and the new pastor that's taken over after Chuck Wilson. He'll be sorely missed. There's no doubt about that. I am seeking my 8th term, so I must be doing something right, I guess. From that aspect of it, I've lived in the town of Matthews for 27 years with my lovely wife, and actually now my granddaughter is living with us as well. And my job is to continue to respect and maintain the heritage and the prosperity of the town of Matthews. And there's a lot of partnerships between public and private organizations that in my next 2 years I want to see fulfilled. One is we're getting a new elementary school with CMS, and we created a wonderful partnership with them to get the first ever Discovery Place kids outside of Mecklenburg County and Rockingham. That's item number 2. And then, of course, I want to see the park development that we so sorely need and the restoration of park land that we need to preserve so we have something for our grandkids in the future as well. So there's a lot of projects that are just beginning to queue up, and I think with my expertise and my knowledge and my years of experience, I'm going to be able to see those through into fruition, because I want a community where you can live, work, and raise a family, and that's what my main goal is. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Tufano, and I am seeking my third term as a commissioner. And I live right across the street from the fire station on South Trade, and 12,000 cars a day go by my front driveway. And so obviously traffic and managed growth is really important to me. And also, though, I've been in business for a long time, and I want to start bringing business practices to the town of Matthews, financial accountability, and also the ability to bring to Matthews the ability for citizens to have an absolute 100% transparency to every public record that we have. I'm a veteran, past commander of the American Legion here, and it was because of our Legion post that we were able to all enjoy the Veterans Memorial Park that sits in Stumptown Park right now. And also, I have 3 children, one of which unfortunately is no longer with us, but she gave me 2 wonderful grandchildren. And with that, I will say thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and hopefully we'll get to know each other better over the coming months. Thank you. Bye.
Good evening, everyone, and certainly to Reverend Whitley and Ms. Tanya, we thank you for being here and moderating. I'm Leon Threet. I've lived here in Matthews almost 38 years. I'm the husband of one wife of 43 years. I said to someone the other day, she loves me every day, but she likes me most days. And I have 3 adult children, 8 grandchildren. The last 3 grandchildren are triplets, 2.5 years old. And so I'm making a sacrifice to be sitting here tonight. And I am also a 10-year active duty Marine Corps veteran, 8.5-year CMPD veteran, and 37 years as a pastor in the Charlotte region. I am in my 20th month as a commissioner, and I'm seeking to serve as the next mayor of Matthews because I still believe I have something to offer the good people of Matthews. And so I pass the baton.
Hello, I'm John Higdon. I always wanted to say that like Johnny Cash. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Larry. Appreciate this opportunity. I recall driving through Matthews when I was in high school with some of my buddies. If I'm honest, we were looking for a fishing pond somewhere. But I recall one of my friends back this in the mid-'70s saying, wouldn't this be a nice place to live? Matthews was a little different back then. But my wife and I, after having moved to several other small towns, I lived in Florence, South Carolina, Toccoa, Georgia. We moved back to the Charlotte area. We've been here about 25 years, and I've been intimately involved in this town ever since I got here. I've volunteered with the Boy Scouts, with Mara. I was on the bat and ball committee there. I coached my son in football and baseball there. I served on the Mecklenburg County Floodplain Task Force. I've served as Ashley Creek Homeowners Association president for several terms. And I served on the Appearance and Tree Board because I'm very passionate about trees. I actually ran for office initially because I saw too many trees being cut down and we weren't enforcing our tree ordinance. And so I'm seeking my 7th term. I've served 1 term as a commissioner, 2 as mayor pro tem, and 3 as your mayor. And I certainly would appreciate the opportunity to serve another term. I think we have a lot of very important things, business to be completed that I helped initiate, and I'd like to see those through to completion. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Susan Chambers, and I have lived in Matthews for 25 years. I didn't move far, moved from Gastonia, where I was born and raised, and have been serving for the last 8 years, I think it is, on the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and am currently the vice chair of that. I'm also serving on the Planning Board, was a part of the Envision Matthews Advisory Committee that was formed when that was going on. and I have served for many, many years at Matthews United Methodist Church in a number of ways. I am running for office because I love the town of Matthews. I want to see it keep its small town charm, but yet grow to meet the needs of the people. And to me, that is the most important thing. And I look forward to being your commissioner and all that good stuff. And I'm terrible at this. And thank you, Tanya and Pastor Whitley and David and Luke. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Reverend Whitley and Tanya and the members of Mount Moriah for having us out here tonight. My name is Jonathan Clayton. I'm a Charlotte native, so I was born in downtown Presbyterian, so I may be one of the few out here, but I was raised in Matthews. Brief stint, I went to UNC Charlotte, married, and I lived up in the university area for about 11 years, came back. So I've been over here over 30 years now living in Matthews. I was raised in Matthews, and now I'm currently raising my children, a 14-year-old and 8-year-old, so they keep me busy. But to that effect, that's why I wanted to serve. And I first decided to serve as a planning board. I served on the planning board for 5 years, and that term was over. I decided to run for commissioner, so here I am again. I lost. But 2 years later, I'm here again. But in the meantime, I served on the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that's what I still do now. That meets once a month, maybe rarely. I'm raising my family here, so I want to make sure that I love Matthews. We worked hard to move back this way and save enough money to do so because it's safe. A lot of options available to us. I care a lot about parks and green space. My house butts up to Purser-Hulsey, so I run out there 3 or 4 times a week. So you see me out there to wave at me, I'm out there running my short shorts. But I believe in managed growth, and I want to see Matthews thrive and be successful and have everybody else in a safe town. So that's me. Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you, Larry, appreciate this. My name is Jim Dedman. I've lived in Matthews for over 20 years. Grew up in Charlotte since I was 14. Went to UNCC as well, got my degree. I am a retired captain of the fire department. I am currently a photographer. Charlotte Fire Department, the big one. I'm currently a photographer with USA Today, my retirement job. I've grown up, I've been in Matthews, like I say, for over 20 years, and I've seen a lot of the changes that I think a lot of us have seen. I wish we still had our small town charm, but I think I've seen it change, and I think I've seen it disappear. I've also seen folks like myself who were retired, and I've seen the affordability of Matthews change. Things have gotten a little bit tighter for all of us for whatever reason. So one of the reasons I want to run for commissioner is because I've kind of sat on the sidelines, and yes, I've poked the bear a few times when it needed to be poked, but I want to get more involved in a physical way as a commissioner because I think I can do a little more good with that. I care enough about this town to take this step, but I care enough about the people I think sometimes who are forgotten in this town, and that is the residents, the long-term residents who are retired or, okay, gotcha. Well, we'll talk later.
Good evening. My name's Carrie Lamson. My wife Jeannie and I moved here 15 years ago. We've been married 46 years. I have a long background in technology and finance. My first job was as a bank examiner. I have a kind of an analytical background. I spent 14 years with Westinghouse, and then I moved on into high tech and ran several large companies and small companies during that time. I've spent 5 years on the Matthews Planning Board, 2 of those as vice chair. I recruited and chaired an affordable housing committee that we executed while on the planning board for a year with community leaders here in town. I've sat on the Silver Line Task Force, was appointed by Mayor Higdon to participate in that. I'm part of the Matthews Housing Alliance, a founding member of that, which is helping to educate about what affordable housing means. And I'm also the treasurer for 14 years of our HOA. I'm running because of the financial commitments and requirements that now are posing themselves to the town. This year's budget's $41 million, and on top of that, as citizens, we just approved $30 million more of general obligation bonds. And I think that those issues are going to place some financial strain on all of us, including those of us trying to help manage the town, and I believe I can bring a background in that area. I'm not a politician. I'm getting the high sign. I'm not a politician. I'm a problem solver, and I hope to be able to do that here at the town level. Thank you.
My name is George Young. I've lived in this town for about 20 years. I want to thank everybody that showed up tonight instead of watching TV or mowing their lawn and decided to come out to hear what we might want to say. I appreciate that dramatically. My personal life is I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force. I spent 5 years in Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War. I have fragments of my memory of living in places dramatically different than the town of Matthews. I went to a lot of schools growing up. I also am a veteran myself. I spent time in the United States Army. As a result, my life is dramatically with a lot of different people, a lot of different places, a lot of different styles. And it's made me the person I am today. I also want to say that I've been on the town board in the past. I have a history of also working in finance. I was working in accounting for over 20 plus years, plus about 8 years as an analyst. I'm currently retired. I've got 2 kids. They just started school on Monday. One's in Chapel Hill. I just had a phone call with them asking how his day was. I have another kid that's over at UNCC. They're starting their 2nd year. A lot of my days is mowing the lawn and waiting for the mailman to come by, and and you can hear the sound of that vehicle drive. So I want to say that's who I am. I think I have something to offer for the town of Matthews. Thank you.
All right, let's give them all a round of applause and a double round of applause for you all staying on schedule. So we appreciate that. Nice job, I have to say that. I do have one additional candidate that's not able to be here that did send a statement. And if I could read it from Mayor Pro Tem Gina Hoover, it says, "Good evening. I hope this message finds you well. I'm writing to sincerely apologize for not being able to attend the candidate forum tonight. I was unaware of the event until I received a phone call from Pastor Whitley on Sunday night, and unfortunately, I'm unable to adjust prior commitments on such short notice. As a candidate, my platform is built on 3 core principles: transparency, fiscal responsibility, and common sense government. I believe in open communication, responsible stewardship of public funds, and practical solutions that reflect the values and priorities of our community. These principles guide every decision I make and every conversation I have. Though I'm not present at the forum, I remain committed to engaging with voters in meaningful ways. I welcome your questions, concerns, and ideas, and I would be glad to connect individually. Thank you for your understanding, and I wish all participants a thoughtful and productive forum. Warm regards, Mayor Pro Tem Gina Hoover." Let's give her a round of applause that she did take the time. So now we're going to move forward, and one of the best things about Matthews is having these conversations. They don't shy away from them, and someone mentioned transparency. The first question that we have, and I'll start from the other end and work our way back since you took the last introduction, is to talk about race. And Pastor Luke, we're doing 60 seconds or still at 90 for this one? 60 seconds, okay. So the question is, how has race played a role in your life? We know there's a lot of division happening among us right now. So how has race played a role in your life, and how have your views on racial issues within the country and state evolved over time? And we'll start from that end. Yes, sir.
Okay, George Young again. On my parents' side, basically, you know, Anglo-Saxon and all that. When I turned 18, I joined the United States Army. I was roommates for 2 years, you know, with a bunch of individuals with a dramatic background than what I had. There's one individual I remember very specifically. He was from Baltimore. It was a nod from the judge. Go in the military or I'm going to put you in jail. His life was dramatically different than mine. Dramatically. I was there every day. I was able to talk to him. Unfortunately, this individual, his past unfortunately owned his life because he ended up being arrested by CID, which is the military police. It was very unfortunate. It changed my life in looking at how things are. I also remember one time in Los Angeles, I saw an individual by the police in handcuffs get beaten up. Sometimes people that live in the suburbs do not comprehend another world that exists out there than their own. Thank you.
"60 seconds is not a lot of time to give history, but I'll give it 60 seconds. I grew up in a low-income family. My dad was a truck driver. My high schools were always interesting activities. We moved around some. I don't have prejudices that I'm aware of. I try not to worry about those issues. I will say that in North Carolina, having come from California where we lived previously, that there still appears to be some segregation issues and mentality here that doesn't exist other areas of the country where we've lived. And I do believe that we're sensing that we still have segregation here in Matthews, which we'll speak about shortly, and that's in the area of housing. And I'm sure if you're in this community, you recognize that. Thank you.
Spent about 4 years in the fire department working in West Charlotte. Some of you may or may have heard of streets like Lucina Street, Beatties Ford Road, LaSalle. I spent 4 years in the west side of Charlotte working there. My first assignment at Station 18 on Keller, I was the only white individual in a crew of all black gentlemen. You talk about a learning curve, and one of the beautiful things about it was the fact that when I would ask them questions, they could look at me and realize he really is asking this seriously. He's honestly asking this question. So those guys taught me a lot about some of the racial issues that they grew up with and that were around us as I worked in those areas. And that did change and shape a lot about my racial aspects, or the aspects I believe in as far as race goes.
Like I said previously, I grew up in Matthews. I was blessed to grow up in Matthews. To my knowledge, I don't have any prejudice against anyone. I treat everybody fairly and believe in merit and character over the color of your skin. So I'm a race director on my side business. We put on ultra run races, and we have all sorts of people come out and run our races, and we have no issues with anyone. I realize that some people, you know, their characters are a little off than others, and sometimes it throws a bad light on a whole race of people. So that's just kind of my opinion on it.
Growing up in Gastonia, actually on the west side of Gastonia, and in public school, I personally do not see different colors on people's skin. And I truly believe that we all are God's children and should be treated as such, each and every one of us.
I was born in 1963, a few months before President Kennedy was assassinated, and grew up in the 60s as a child watching television and seeing race riots and people pushed down with fire hoses and all of those terrible things. Moved to North Carolina in 1975 when I was 12 years old from a city that was largely 99% white, to a school, Quail Hollow in South Meck, that were about 50% black and 50% white. And I can honestly say that I don't recall any racial incidents whatsoever. Became fast friends with many people of many different colors. We played sports together. And it was only as I grew older that I realized that racism is not gone and it's still here today.
Leon Threed, I'm sure I'm the only one on this panel that was born into an era when segregation was prevalent. Born in Union County in 1958, my first 3 years of school was in a segregated school. From that, I can make my own decisions what I'll do with that. And all of my life, I've been exposed to all kinds of relationships and all kinds of confrontations. But I've been personally committed to a lifestyle of reconciliation, of appreciation, and valuing people, period. And I've made it part of my ministry as a pastor to be the kind of leader that would work toward reconciliation. There is still work to be done for all of us, but I think the real issues are not as much by public policy as it is personal heart issues. If we would check our own hearts to make sure these things do not continue, then we will make progress.
And if I could just ask, because we have so many, and I know that you enjoy or agree with some of the statements, to kind of hold the applause, if it's okay, so that we can keep moving, because we've got a lot to cover. Thank you.
You would do that right before
I know,
spoke.
I was trying not
Yes.
to. I apologize.
That's fine. So I was the president of the student body of the second largest high school in Palm Beach County. And I was brought into the principal's office one day, and he said, "Mark, I need your help." He said, "The first black student is going to arrive tomorrow at this high school, and I need you to spread the word and make sure that this person is absolutely welcomed." And we did. It was a wonderful experience. She was an enormously popular young lady. And then as time went on and as years passed by, and you see the struggle that keeps going on over and over and over again, starting violently and ending now just in people's hearts and minds, but nevertheless, it's still there. So I lament that we can't go back to that day that first young lady came into that school, and we opened up our arms and loved her. Thank you.
Evening, John Urban again. I guess it's a really difficult subject to talk about, but I can tell you my influence comes from when I attended UNCC. My profession is as an architect, a design professional in art, and so it was a cultural plethora of people from all over the world in the art arena from that standpoint. So you meet people from Asia and Europe and South Africa, and your main goal was the art, and it brought everybody together. So there was no discussion about race or anything from that aspect of it. So I didn't know any different. Our main goal was to produce art and architecture from that aspect of it. So there are no bounds that the art brought us together. So in that reality, that was my eye-opening foray into it. I know other professions probably aren't as integrated from that standpoint, but from my background, you know, even in my office today, it is fully integrated from that aspect of it as well. And that binding truth is the art that we work on. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Brian Hacker again. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase all this because I have a lot of feelings. My daughter was adopted from Guatemala. I experience race and racism every day. She's 22 years old. We just sent her off to college. You know what one of her first worries was? Is this a safe place or is the Border Patrol going to come and get me? So I live it. I experience it. And I think these stories are great. And to say that you don't see color and you don't see racism, I don't know how you say that. With the fear my daughter lives every single day. I work in a school. You know what we all talk about? We're boarding those doors and closing them if anybody ever comes to our school and tries to come in. Thank you.
Jennifer Garrity, again. this is a difficult thing for all of us to sit up here and talk about. It's a very sensitive subject. I grew up in Vermont. Didn't have much experience whatsoever with much variation in anybody I went to school with until I went to college. And much like John Higdon, played sports, had activities, did everything. There was just no issue. But as I joined the professional world, you see how race plays a role in the professional world, in society, as a lawyer, I see it in the courts. So it is definitely something that has evolved in me. The awareness of it has evolved in me over the years, and certainly realize that it's something that we need to address. Thank you.
And Jennifer, I want to thank you for saying exactly what I was going to state. It is a difficult conversation. And so kudos to you all who have decided to serve and to address this difficult issue. Now, many people argue that racial injustices ended with Jim Crow segregation. And there are two questions. We know we've become more educated about the term of implicit bias. And so the two questions is, do you agree with the assessment that racial injustices ended with Jim Crow segregation? And the second question is, what racial injustices exist today that the city of Matthews should address? And if I could start with Mr. Hacker, and we'll work our way down and then come back to you. Jennifer, thank you.
First question, no, it did not end. Also, it is here in Matthews, it is in Mecklenburg County. As I said before, I'm a teacher now. I worked for Charlotte Mecklenburg Schools in their communications department, one of the most segregated school districts in the country. The rate of upward mobility in this county, and even here in this city, this town, I'm sure, we were, some of you may know, it was part of the Mecklenburg County survey, last. County's moved up to 48th. There is segregation. There are injustices, and I believe here in Matthews there are too. As someone mentioned with the homes, affordability. And I think we need to pay attention to that and treat each other kindly and look out for each other. Thank you.
So we're all sitting in a church, and obviously we realize that there will always be evil in this world. And so to your answer question, injustice ended? Absolutely not, because there is evil in this world, and there is always going to be confrontation from that aspect of it. Are there injustices in the city of Matthews? I assume there probably are some, but as a commissioner and as town staff and employees and a town manager, they're always working to listen to the employees, listen to the public, and work to the betterment of the whole entire community. I think the greater injustice that filters out into this thing is right now what's going on in the world is the persecution of Christians and Jews throughout the world, which is on a scale far greater and far larger than the issues that we're dealing with right now. Thank you.
When Christ was asked what was the most important commandment, he said they all can be boiled down to two. Love the Lord with all your heart and mind and soul, and love your fellow man as yourself. So has racial prejudice ended since the Jim Crow era? I say no, because the heart has not mended. So what it is that this is a spiritual warfare just as much as it is a social warfare. And until we get to the point where we look at each other through our heart instead of through our eyes, then we will get to the point where we can do something positively. Do we see racial injustice in Matthews today? I personally have not seen overt racial injustice, but I'm sure it exists. And I myself, and I'm sure any of us here on this panel, will do all we can to make sure that we bring that to an end. Thank you.
Excellent point, Mark. I think there are still issues that still exist. Jim Crow as a system may be hiding, but the spiritual forces behind Jim Crow is still lurking in our midst. And we all have the responsibility to take him captive and rid him from our community. And I make it part of my commitment to do that on a daily basis as a pastor, but also as an elected official, to make sure that people are treated fairly and justly, and that their ethnicity is not a barrier to what they're entitled to. So I know there's work to be done, but that's why we're here.
I worked with a young man who was a brilliant engineer, and he happened to be black. He left the employ of the company that I worked for, became a very successful executive in Charlotte, and his wife was also a very successful executive, and he purchased a very nice car, and I was commenting, and Penny and I went out to dinner with this couple. We were commenting on his car, and he had told me that a few weeks earlier he'd been pulled out of his car by a Charlotte police officer and asked how a boy like him could afford such a fine car. So that's how I know racism still exists. It's hit personally to folks that I know. The best thing that we can do here as a community is what this church and other churches are doing, is racial bridge building, going out and breaking bread with people that look different than you, because racial justice comes through understanding. And I think the things that Pastor Whitley, that you're doing, and others, my church, Matthews United Methodist, goes a long way in that vein. Thank you.
I do not think that segregation ended with Jim Crow, and I have not experienced racial injustices in the Matthews area. I'm like everybody else, I'm sure it exists, and would do anything in the world to stop it and help those that are in need because of it.
Yeah, for the first one, no, of course not, because as long as evil is in the world, there'll always be evil people that are racist, murderers. So of course not. Until the Lord comes back, I mean, it'll always exist, and unfortunately, it's something we're gonna have to deal with, and it's gonna be awful. But racial injustice exists in the city of Matthews. I'm sure it does. There's 35,000 people here. I'm sure there's a few awful people here that believe awful things. So what should we do? I mean, sometimes you can't change their heart. Sometimes it comes from God to change the person's heart, but I think we definitely should address that if that is the case. So there we go.
Okay, along with everyone else, no, it hasn't ended. And as far as the injustices within the town of Matthews, I think our responsibility as commissioners is when those issues come to us, it is our duty and responsibility to our citizens to handle them by the law, in the legal manner, and in the most fair manner as possible. Nothing's going to be perfect. We aren't. No one else is. But you try taking your step forward and doing the best you can with it, and hopefully you can fix some of the problems.
Well, excuse me, I'm not going to break it up. It certainly exists. As I mentioned a few moments ago, there's an organization that got started in 2022 called the Redress Movement. They are specifically fighting segregation and injustice, racial injustices. I've met with their chapter leader here in Charlotte about housing. And in doing the studies that we did, there's clearly injustices around the housing that exists, and the price points and the availabilities and the locations that exist within the Matthews community. And there's a not in my backyard mentality to people who are of lower income regardless of their color, and that is a shame. This is not something that we can address, and it's not unique to Matthews. It's much broader than that, but it certainly does exist, and it's something that we need to be very conscious of as we serve.
Naeem, on this issue, this is the period of history of codified racism. You actually had it in the books, in the law books. When I first moved here over 25 years ago, I was at the law library downtown and reading some of these books from the 1920s. It was shocking to see that in ink, passed by the state legislature. combined with old stories by the Charlotte Observer that push that narrative. Here in the town of Matthews, our community center, there's pictures of, the student body in 1924. Everybody's white. The black school was located over here. When I moved to Pine Forest, which is on the other side of these railroad tracks, I came into this church because I needed to hear what this population had to think. I remember Mr. Whitley was here. He was in the other building before they were able to get this building purchased. Thank you.
Hello, Jennifer Garrity once again. Listening to what everybody is saying, there's a lot of things that I could reiterate that others have said, but I do want to say that I don't believe completely that. Well, first of all, let me say yes, I don't think racial injustice ended with Jim Crow, but I think so much of the time there is fear that drives this racial injustice. And so education, I think, is one of the biggest factors that we can do to help bring communities together. And that combined with listening. My job as an attorney, I have to listen to my clients. I remember a client told me one time, "Thank you for listening to me." That's one of the things I would bring to the table, is listening, because we have to listen so we can hear, so we can be aware of what the injustices are. Thank you.
So let me say you all are doing an incredible job of staying on schedule, and we have one more question, and then we'll get to your questions, which I'm sure you have plenty. And we'll start from the other end, and this is a two-parter as well. The first question is, what should be done about the fact that many people who live in Matthews cannot afford to live here? And the second question is, what priority should housing have for the city of Matthews? And so we'll start on the opposite end, and I'm not sure your name, but not the very last, but the gentleman, yes.
Kerry Lamson.
Thank you.
We have looked at housing. We have studied it. We've done analyses, and it's clear. Over 30% of the people that live here are house poor, cost burdened, which means by definition you spend more than 30% of your income on housing. Over 3,000 households in this community currently are house poor, and over half of those are significantly house poor. The mean average price of a house last year was $505,000, and the rental prices are $1,600 for a single bedroom property. The average wage of the people that live here is under $40,000 a year, because it's retail, it's services, it's restaurant. 93% of the people that live here work somewhere else, and 95% of the people that work here commute every day from somewhere else because they cannot afford to live here. Our critical essential workers, school teachers, all of those individuals cannot afford to live in Matthews currently.
Okay, as I said in my introduction, for all of us who are seniors and who are on fixed incomes or standard incomes, life in Matthews has gotten more expensive. There's no doubt about it, and as he was saying. I think one of the things that can be done and needs to be done is when it comes budget time, we need to start looking at ways that we can cut and give the taxpayer a break. He needs one, she needs one, and I haven't seen a whole lot of that in the last few years. As far as a priority for housing for the city of Matthews, our priority needs to be, as a government, needs to be the fundamental functions of government. We're not in the real estate business. We shouldn't be. We usually don't do well. I think we need to handle how things are built, how the developments go in, how they affect the neighbors, and how they affect the town in general when we have these high density housing things going, places going in, et cetera, et cetera. Back to what I was saying. Gotcha.
So yeah, we moved back to Matthews after me and my wife and family graduated in Charlotte. we got in, I guess, at the right time. We live in a house that we paid $189,000. That home today now goes for well over $4 million. So based on those rules, I would not be able to afford to live in Matthews. We had to. It's not the result of the town; it's the result of Mecklenburg County upping the cost of our house, the worth of the house. So a lot of things that are out of our control. But what we can control is the taxes that the town passes, and that's the main thing to make this house, make living in Matthews more affordable, is just to make sure we don't raise taxes anymore to cover things that we shouldn't be investing in. That would make housing a little bit better to live in the city of Matthews, and hopefully I can continue to live here.
As I'm a realtor, so as a realtor, this is not just a Matthews problem. It's a problem everywhere with the prices of housing, price to build houses, and it's just going to get worse. And what we can do is, and the town has started to do it, have developments set aside a few affordable housing units with each project that comes along for people that are underserved, and or our firefighters, our police officers, our school teachers, and all of our people like that would love to live in Matthews but can't afford to.
Like Jonathan, my wife and I moved here in 2001. I was in my 30s. Our first house, and the house we live in now, cost $250,000, and we had many sleepless nights wondering if we could afford it. Now, with the median house being $450,000 or $500,000, we absolutely must attempt to encourage developers to offer housing, that missing middle housing, the affordable workforce housing. We can't just say, too bad, our houses all cost $500,000 to $1 million, and if you're 25 or 30 and want to buy a first house, you can't get one. So we've done that. We've put some developments in that are the missing middle, that are in the $300,000 to $400,000 range, which I'm shocked to say is affordable, but that's about as best as we can do during these times. But that's something that we need to continue to try to do.
Thank you, John. I mean, the problems of housing is regional, as it has already been communicated. The problem is much bigger than just what Matthews is facing. The Mecklenburg County inflated the cost of the average home. The home didn't improve, but the cost of it, for many homes, I like my home, increased by 35% just by the inflating the cost of it. So again, we need good government that will not demand more either cost of the house or taxes. Those are things we can control as government. Is we can control the taxes related to your property. I'm very, very concerned about the increased percentage of property tax, because that's your home, that's where you dwell. And so I think good government will look for ways to ensure the services are provided, but without raising taxes. Those are things we can do. And also, it's important to build a strong economy, because we've got to have the kind of jobs that will pay for those homes as they increase in costs.
The town of Matthews does not have a plan to address affordable housing. It sporadically gives money time to time, and also repeatedly coerces developers to provide what they call affordable housing. We need a plan. We need to be a business people, and we need to look at this as a problem that needs to be resolved and come up with the proper way to do it. I floated the idea of a housing authority. It was not well received on the current board. Housing authorities could be used to solve these problems because they're the only entities under state statutes that would have the flexibility to do so. So we need a plan, we need a process, and we need to have the structure in place in order to properly deal with this issue.
So that's all we need, more government to solve all our problems, a housing authority. No, folks, that's inerrant. I can ask anybody on this board, how many units of affordable housing do we have on the books? No one knows the answer, do they? 159, which is not a bad start in comparison to how many units we've approved in various types of housing, okay? We are working with Habitat of Humanity to create a model in which private developers are working with Habitat to give them properties in which they, in perpetuity, can manage for affordable housing. That's how you begin to do it. You go to the private sector. This is my wheelhouse. I've done these types of projects. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. How do we bend the taxes? It's a canard to think we're going to be able to bring taxes down if we don't do something about it. But how much are your gas prices going up, your bananas, everything else? The same for the town of Matthews. With the advanced manufacturing campus that we're working with Hendrick on now, when that comes online, the tax benefits we're going to reap from that will bend the cost curve of taxes in this town. We'll be able to take that money and reinvest it in this community.
Well, John, you stole part of my speech, so, I'll have to work with that. I am going to. I've sat in on meetings of the Board of Commissioners and listened to what's being done. Some are good, some maybe not so good, but a lot are good. We do have good things happening. John mentioned the Habitat for Humanity projects. 4 of them, I believe, are back up here. You've got Pastor Whitley and his church working on affordable housing. So it can be done. Doesn't need more oversight. We just need to look at what can be done. We can work with developers to find ways to do it. Also, for the prices, we need to think outside the box to get this city to have different items. People may want to live in apartments, may want to live in townhomes, smaller single-family homes, small yards. They may not want the homes that some of us may have of the large house and a large lot. Let's get smaller.
So you've heard some statistics. I think Carrie gave you some statistics. John gave you some statistics. Obviously, affordable housing or attainable housing is definitely an issue, not just here in Matthews. I'm not going to tell you as I sit here that I have an answer to this, but I will tell you we need to figure something out. I think there needs to be collaboration with the community, perhaps with churches, with grassroots organizations like Habitat for Humanity. There can be some solutions. To Brian's point, we do need to think outside the box, but I think as commissioners, we need to consider the issue that has in Matthews. As a business owner here, it's really important. I need to be able to hire employees who can work here, to live here, to work here. So it's an issue, and we need to work on it. And that's, I can tell you that's what I would do as a commissioner. I don't have all the answers, but I will certainly work toward it. Thanks.
Name's George. I got 60 seconds to solve a issue that's unsolvable in 60 seconds. Interesting stat, in the year 2080, the population in the world is going to go negative. Parts of the world, such as Italy and Japan, prices are actually falling dramatically. They can't get rid of stuff because the aging of the population. Town of Matthews, the house I own, went from $160,000 to $460,000. My last tax bill went up over 55%. There was a 17% real increase that was called revenue neutral. I do believe in the concept of trying to keep people in their houses. We got fixed income people that these high tax increases are going to potentially throw them out of their houses. We had a bunch of preachers down in Charlotte that wrote a lengthy article about this issue that the light rail was doing to them. Okay, so keeping people that are currently in is important also. Thank you.
So we'll now, first of all, thank you all. Thank you so much for staying on schedule and providing your feedback for these questions. But we now will open up the floor for questions from you all. So if you would come to the microphone there, and if someone's on this side, you're welcome to use this one as well. We do ask, however, and I think Pastor Larry has something to say, that you please ask the question like in 30 seconds versus a long story and then the question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm one of the person want to ask some questions. And those of you can still too. As you well know, I was a commissioner for 8 years. And I was very fortunate to see some changes and some good changes. But I have some concern. I got off the board not because I wanted to, but some health issues. But at the same time, I'm still very much interested in your decisions and how you think as the town goes. There is still prejudice in the town of Matthews. Let me clear that right now. So those of you who are coming on town, don't think it's not. It does exist. That's why we put together a board that could come together and try to iron out some of our differences. My question to all of you tonight is that if you are elected this term coming around, would you commit to keeping Martin Luther King, Juneteenth, and work as hard as you can to make sure each and everybody is represented? Show of hands. And I appreciate you being honest, because that's what I want. Those dates are very important to me, because when I came here, the town of Matthews was not representing or honoring Martin Luther King. I was shocked. All the other towns around us honor Martin Luther King. We didn't. The Board of Commissioners heard me, they listened to me, and they voted Martin Luther King as a holiday. Juneteenth is very important because it's the end of slavery, and you know the story in that. And not only if you're elected to attend Martin Luther King and Juneteenth, I encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for your honesty. My second question that everybody else got. When I was on the town commissioner, we didn't have the money to get some of the things, the park, the road, and Matthew downtown, to make sure that the streets and all. And so we posed a bond issue to the citizens of Matthew. That bond passed over 60% of people in favor of it, which now gives this board an opportunity to lit bonds, and they've already taken one by working on Percy Harsey Park. Now, the other part is very dear to me because it's in my community. The second was to fix this intersection of Charles Street and Crestdale. There are so many tractor trailers has been stuck on that track. We had one train derailment. We had one fatality. Now, that is in the bond, and I'm asking you tonight, if you are elected, would you make sure that this intersection as safety for the town of Matthews, that we can lift the bond to make sure that Crestdale and Charles Street be fixed? Show of hands. Thank you very much. The floor is now open. If you'll come to this mic.
Thank you for doing this. It helps us to get to know you all better. About the affordable housing that's being built, I'm really pleased to see that. I'm just thrilled. Right, we really need that here at Matthews. I'd like to ask two of you, I'll pick Commissioner Threet and Jonathan Clayton, one who's on the board and one who isn't. You think that when we build this affordable housing, if seniors are going to be allowed to apply for this affordable housing, how would you feel about having a gay married couple apply for housing, for the affordable housing?
I'll go first. I think housing laws of our U.S. Constitution and North Carolina Constitution already sets the standards that you cannot discriminate against person for sexual orientation. So that's a no-brainer for me. It's the law, and we'll stand by it.
Do you have any personal feelings about that, or are you just going to stick with the law?
No, I have some very strong personal feelings about that. I think there are some things that are out of sync with my personal biblical worldview, and I do believe very strongly that there are certain biblical standards as a pastor, as a leader, that I think we need to live by. I don't believe that a man and a woman who are not married should live together. I don't believe that couples should have sex before marriage. I don't believe that a man should cheat on his wife or a wife on her husband. I believe very strongly these are good moral standards, and I think for thousands of years we've lived by these standards, and I think the biblical worldview is a strong, conservative, common sense way of living, and those are my personal views, and they help guide and govern my decision as a citizen, but also as an elected official.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no law that they would be breaking, but I would have no problem with letting them apply to be a part of as long as they qualify for the affordable housing. No issues at all with that, no.
And you don't have any personal issues with it other than the law?
Yeah, I have some personal issues with it, but I mean, I have a lot of opinions about a lot of different things, good or bad. So do you want me to, is that what you're asking me? You want to expand on that, or, I mean,
Both.
I really, I mean, as a commissioner, I really can't, my personal belief doesn't really affect what I have to rule on. So that's, yeah, that's it. Oh, you want more?
That's a refreshing standpoint.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Please come to the mic. Thank you.
This is just a one-word answer. I would like to know how each one of you personally is going to vote on the 1-cent sales tax that's going to be on the ballot this November.
Thank you for bringing that up. We can start. Commissioner, you want to start first? Since we'll move down. No. Okay. Are you saying no to me or no to him? All right. We'll just roll down, one-word answer. Yes, you're next. Yes.
One-word answer. Don't want any extra. One-word
Undecided. Undecided, that's great leadership. I say no, and I would put an expletive in front of it, but we're in church.
Undecided.
Very good. Next question. All right, you'll come to the mic.
Hi, I'm Carol Hatcher. Several of you guys have mentioned development, the family feel of Matthews, affordable housing, and I want to thank those of you that are on the town council. I live in the Benton Woods neighborhood off Sardis Road, and some of you who've been living here for decades are familiar with the farm property on Sardis Road, which is now being developed by J.P. Orleans. And Mayor, I appreciate you coming out. Renee Gardner came out to speak with us, and then they invited our neighbors to come and speak. And I do think my 7-year-old next door neighbor was the best. But I stood in mud talking to the supervisor of J.P. Orleans. They clear cut the property. I stood on top of a stump that was 4 feet in diameter. They cut a tree in front of me that was 6 feet in circumference. And he said to me, we're gonna pay a fine. You know, we're gonna pay a fine. Clear cut. They saved one tree because I stood beside of it and it was 3 feet from the property line. But their mentality is, we're just gonna pay a fine. So we checked. It appears to us that it's really the town of Matthews that let us down. We don't have the ordinances in place that protect us. There's no affordable housing going on that property. They could have put a duplex on there that would have helped. They're not doing that. So they just pay a fine. They have a way to get around it. So my question is, what can we do about that?
I'd love the opportunity to address that. I said earlier, I let it be widely known the reason I first ran for office is because I was sickened by how many trees were being cut down, including all of those behind my neighborhood. I went to work one day and came home and 60 acres was clear cut. That's why I ran for office 12 years ago. And when I went to the site that you were on, I nearly brought a tear to my eye. There were trees there that were growing before the Revolutionary War that were cut down. It's very sad. Our issue within the town is that the state legislature threatens us every time we try to improve our tree ordinance. And almost every year, a legislator will bring forth a bill that says if you do anything to increase your tree ordinance or enforce it any more strongly than you do now, we're going to eliminate all tree ordinances, period, and they can clear cut everything. All that being said, can we improve our ordinance some? Well, we certainly can try. I think we need to after seeing that travesty there. To add insult to injury, the fines that they pay go to the State Board of Education and don't even come back to Matthews. They go to the state, and we don't even get the fines, so we don't get the monies back to plant more trees. So I will commit, and I've committed to your neighbors, to certainly look at that and see if we can. That was a by right residential development, and we had almost no say at all. It didn't come before this board, but it was a complete travesty and terrible. And I will commit, if reelected, or maybe in the time I have remaining if I'm not reelected, to try to see if we can strengthen that a little bit. But we have to do baby steps. If we go say, you know, by gosh, you have to save 35% of the trees or whatever, then we'll have no tree ordinance and they'll be clear cutting everything.
Would anyone else like to comment?
I'd like to press, if I could, that I think we should do everything we can to not ever let that happen again. And if that means challenge the narrative at this point, let's challenge it, meaning that we need to push back and not allow that kind of thing to ever happen in Matthews again. Now, that matter never came to this board. We found out about it days after it had begun. Most of the decisions were made at the county level, but I think everything we can do as a small town of 36,000, we have got to do it to protect Matthews. And so I commit to work with the mayor in his remaining months as mayor, and perhaps his or my next season as mayor. We will continue to do everything we can to make sure that never happens again, because that's what makes Matthews unique and different from the other places around us. So I think we both are committed to that.
If I may add something too, you made a very good point. A good friend of mine was the lady that you went to in the town of in the city of Rock Hill when you got your permitting, and when the apartments on Monroe Road, I call them the Shawshank apartments because the only thing they don't have is a guard tower. I think Mr. Urban, I think you designed those, if I remember right. That whole area was clear cut as well when Mayor Bailey was in control, and he was upset about that too. But my point being is, when I asked her after that happened, I said, these guys are going to have to pay a fine for this, and she said they work that into their profit margin from the very start. Every one of them does. And if they don't get caught, that's just extra for them. My question would be, and one of the things that maybe the town can do is press on Mecklenburg County. For example, even the silt fences that they should have up that would help prevent some of that mud from coming into your backyards. If those aren't being put up, then that's something that code enforcement should be going out there and enforcing and having the developers make certain that they have that in place. That should be the rules that they accepted when they built that, or they choose to build it. Just my 2 cents.
Excuse me. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mark.
All right. I want to refer to that same piece of property right next to City Barbecue. It upset me so much that I went through the expense of hiring a videographer and to make a movie about that. Just the building permit value, not the retail value, the building permit value of those buildings was $39 million. The $100,000 or $50,000 actually that they paid in fines, and another $50,000 that they had decided to donate, is just a drop in the bucket. That's part of their expense. They don't even think about saving the trees when they can knock them all down and build what they want to build and just pay a fraction of a percent of their overall cost. Now, the only way to resolve that is to work with our state legislators in order to change the statutes that allow us to govern that sort of thing. So we need to have a plan in order of which we work with our legislators to come up with a way to change these rules and regulations. That's a long process. It doesn't give immediate rewards, but it's something that we'll need to do in order to change this, because as it exists right now, and I am totally upset about this whole thing as well, about giving just a fine in lieu of. It'll never stop. It won't stop. That's the way they do business. So we've just got to make sure that we take all the steps we can to correct that legislatively.
I'm going to show my naivety. I'm not sure I follow exactly who approved this developer to begin with.
The county did.
So if I had a vendor that did something that I didn't want, they wouldn't be a vendor again. I don't care about a fine. Why don't we give them some form of, if you're going to do these types of things in town, then you're going to go on a list that says you're not allowed to do development in our town for the next 3 or 5 years or whatever the magnitude of that is. It has nothing to do with legislature. It has something to do with our policies about following our guidelines. There has to be something more we can do in that situation to communicate the importance of following those things. Now, if this is a county issue and the county doesn't act on it, then again, I apologize, I'm not aware of this, but from my perspective, if someone's doing something that they shouldn't be doing, then why do we continue to let them do it? Well, no, the ordinances for our town wouldn't allow them to do that, right?
Okay, we've got a comment down here as well. And then we'll come back. We've got 2 on this end, then we'll come back.
So we got a lot of people that are already on the board, a lot of talk, no action. So after that meeting, I immediately talked to the chair of the Appearance of Tree Board, who has worked on policy. The mayor and myself wrote the tree ordinance in 2007 through 2012, so we're well aware of what's in the ordinance. I also had my hand slapped in 2013 by Raleigh when we went after trying to increase the tree save preservation. Raleigh actually, we went into a private office up there and they threatened to remove our ordinances from us. But I've always encouraged us to increase our policy if we can. So my marching orders, and talking to Debbie Foster, who's the chair of Hawk and chair of AT Board last night, I'm getting here in contact with the planning director, see what we can do to begin to push that narrative a little bit and nudge it. But as anybody may know in this office, in this church, there were 2 bills that were floated, one in the House and one in the Senate this year, to strip us of our ordinances. And we didn't even do anything. And so that's the care that we have to watch. Now, I think we have to definitely hold the feet to the fire to these developers from that aspect of it, but it has to be a joint proposition with both the county and the town from that aspect. We're a small player in this thing. The county does a lot of the heavy lift for us. If we did it on our own, we would be increasing taxes because we would have to bring in more structure from that aspect of it. So these incidences they bring in an awareness to everybody, and then we look at it, we pivot, and then we restructure it. But I will guarantee you that as of the last couple of days, I've been on the phone and then emailing saying, okay, how did this happen? Why did it happen? And what do we do to make those changes? Thank you.
Thanks, John, for that. I think I can echo a couple of different things that were said here from Mark, from Carrie, and from John. But I think it's really important as commissioners that we do our due diligence, for one. That's got to be the starting point. But then there's going to have to be, because of situations like this, there's going to have to be collaboration with the county, with lobbyists. We have representation in Raleigh, but we've got to keep pressing that representation in Raleigh, and we've got to hold everybody's feet to the fire. We have to stay on top of it. So it is a combination of effect, but it does the things that are within the realm of the board. There has to be that due diligence from the get-go.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that my first interest in government here was actually getting on the Tree and Appearance Board, because I love trees, just to be blunt. This is a long time ago. Right behind me, they cut down about 45 acres, and it was so sad to see it go. The norm is they're supposed to keep a buffer like 20 feet, and particularly around creeks, but a lot of times they violate this. You're not the first time. I'm sad that this has happened. They treat this as just a business expense, or pay the fine, or plant these tiny trees to replace them. We don't have home rule here. All authority is vested in Raleigh. The two reps, Laura Budd, Tricia Cotham, are two people you might want to talk to, okay? Tricia Cotham is the person that got the 1 cent sales tax to Raleigh. That's a big deal. She has some weight up there, okay? By the way, I heard you both speak recently at the town hall. I went out personally to take a look. There's trees on the frontage that were cut down. That's a no-no. Obviously, I couldn't trespass to find out the big tree that's down there. I made a public request to find out if there was a heritage tree back there. It's not listed, okay? There's a remark about the town manager is supposed to check on this stuff. I find it terrible and sad, okay? It makes me angry. It really does, okay? It's a beautiful neighborhood back in there. I was one neighborhood that I was considering buying a house when I first moved here. I'm so sorry for what had happened. You know, a lot of people get involved in government because something happens in their backyard, okay? Stay involved, seriously. They have what's called a long session. That's where they pass laws and stuff. North Carolina is very much a pro-development, pay-to-play state, okay? You should look at the finance reports, how much money is moving around out there, you know, from the developing lobbies. Thank you.
All right. More questions? Okay, we have one here. Thank you.
Hey, I'm actually John Urban's granddaughter and didn't plan at all to come up here and talk, but hearing the mayor talk about the trees and everything and how he's so passionate about that. I work with animals on a daily basis. I house sit. I work at a daycare. I work at a kennel. I've worked in vet med. I'm vet assistant certified, and I actually.
Can you hold the mic up a little closer so they can? They've got
and
people
I
listening.
actually found out that some of our shelters and adoption places aren't up to code and are actually getting scrutinized and aren't being taken care of. And is there any plans at all from anyone to take care of any of this? Just because that's something that I'm very passionate about, just like the mayor's passionate about trees. I just wanted to make sure something can be done about that.
Excuse me, were you talking about the wildlife in those areas?
No, more of the yeah, the domestic pets.
The rescue shelters,
yes,
things of
the
that
shelters
nature?
and
All right,
such.
boy, do I have a story for that. So my daughter, like all young kids, they want their, may I have that dog? May I have that dog? I promise I'll take care of that dog. Of course, I always ended up taking care of all of them. But the condition that we went in, every time we went in, we always lamented that it wasn't what we would like to have seen. Now, are you talking about the county shelter, or the one in Charlotte, or anyone in general? Well, you know, anytime we as commissioners or candidates or citizens or whatever, we all have the opportunity to address this directly with the authority that's oversees that. Have you had the opportunity to talk with anyone and actually file a complaint? Okay, well, so we would like to, if you could be so kind as to maybe pick a location or a specific incident, then perhaps we can address it like that. Thank you.
Actually, I'd like to address that if I could have the chance. I understand what you're saying, and I think it is a county facility. And as the town of Matthews in the county, if there's an issue, come to us and bring it to us. Because I think we should be able to make some comments to the county to say, hey, we've heard there's issues. I mean, it's run by CMPD, Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. So I would make a commitment that if you came to me and I was on the board, yes, I would ask to find out what the concerns are you have and ask them to address them.
We have another question here. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. pastor asked the question concerning Martin Luther King's Day and Juneteenth. I would like to ask, because I saw the show of hands, except for Mark and Leon, if you two would please explain why you said no. Thank you so much.
I was hoping I can get a chance to explain that. I believe very strongly that all of the holidays like that, or any holidays, is to elevate and empower people. And after doing some thorough research on Juneteenth, I believe that the recognition of the 13th Amendment would be a better representation, because it was the 13th Amendment that set all slaves free in America. Juneteenth addresses solely the slaves set free in Texas, and it's the 19th of June of, I believe it was 1865, I believe it was, or something. So the 13th Amendment would be a better holiday, and I would wish that we would have been able to do the proper diligence of that before it was implemented as a holiday, because the 13th Amendment is far-reaching and far more, I believe, far more effective, because that's when all of slaves all over America was declared free through a legislative, not just through a recognition in Texas, but legislatively, a national recognition of all Americans of dark and black or African descent was liberated and set free by legislation. That's why, and certainly I do recognize and support Martin Luther King holiday, but I'm a little bit challenged by Juneteenth, and because I believe a better vetting of the history of it would have made a much better 13th Amendment recognition than Juneteenth.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to answer that. I do want to say, Larry, I love you to death. You know, I'm a regular attendee of your church, and I hope you know my heart. But the way you phrased the questions kind of left it very difficult to justify an answer. For instance, on the bond issue for fixing your out here, there are other ways, in my opinion, and I want to fix that, but there's other ways, in my opinion, to fix that without raising the bonds and adding taxation. So when you phrased the question the way you did, I was compelled to answer no. But in wanting to fix that, yes, absolutely, it's a high priority. But I feel as though there are other ways to do it than that. But if I could answer Nell's question.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So it's just a philosophical thing for me. I don't want to divide people. I want people to come together. I know that Martin Luther King holiday and Juneteenth are very important to the black community. But excuse me. Thank you. But I want to make sure that you understand that it's not against that particular person or that particular event. It's in my heart. I would like to see all recognitions of individual ethnicities or cultures to not be made predominant, because in my opinion, it's a separation versus a unification. So that is my own personal belief, and that is the reason I voted the way I did.
Thank you both so much for answering that. And guess what? That's why we have to vote. We have to get out and vote for the people that we really think are going to do something. Thank you so much.
Mark, whenever I asked about the 1%, as a commissioner when I was on the board, we could not find any other way other than the bond issue. That's why when we passed the bond, now I'm a person of belief that even if you don't believe it and the majority go, then we recognize the right of the majority and follow them. The majority of Matthews voted for the bond, which was to put in the bond that this road, along with several others, be lifted once the bond passed. And that's why I asked you, because As a commissioner, we couldn't find the money nowhere else other than the bond, and I want you to know that the bond was the most cheapest and more efficient way for us to get our streets done, our parks completed, and certainly we want to make sure that we don't want to do them all at one time. But this road, and I want you to be, is a health and a hazard issue. It cannot be put on the back burner to try to find another way, which I know, and I've seen it. You say you don't like it. I'm not talking to you personally. You say you don't like it, but you don't have a solution to it. Wherever else you can get.
Excuse me, if I can. I want to make one point explicitly clear, is the people of this county did not vote to have the bonds issued.
Matthews.
They voted.
Matthews.
They voted, I'm sorry, Matthews. They voted to allow, they authorized the Board of Commissioners to issue the bonds.
That's correct.
All right, they didn't say, I want the bonds. They said, I authorize you to.
And that's correct. You're right,
Would you please listen to my reasoning? So it is our job to be fiduciarily responsible. If there are other ways to do things without raising taxes, then that's where my mind goes. We could fix that without having to do it through the bond, in my opinion. Now, I might be in the majority, a minority here, but what I'm trying to say, Larry, and that's why I brought it up, that has to be fixed.
All right.
Okay.
Glad to hear you
But
say
my objection is the way you asked the question.
I understand.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you.
Let me get to Leon just a minute. Leon, you was talking about Juneteenth, and you think that the 13th amendment
yes,
would be a better.
constitutional amendment.
Well, the 13th amendment is not a holiday.
No, it's not. It should have been.
Well, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But Juneteenth is a holiday, which is, if we're going to honor one holiday and the government has passed Juneteenth, then I think we all should honor that as well, too, as a person of color. Now, I know you said that slavery was free for all people of color, African American, and that's the one where you would think.
13th Amendment, yes.
Yes, sir. But at the same time, as you see in the Juneteenth, everybody want free.
No,
and I could tell you today, we still not free.
Well, laws are created by legislators. Slavery was authorized or ignored by failing to pass legislation. The 13th Amendment passed a national constitutional amendment that made it clear that no state could hold any people into slavery. The 13th Amendment made it clear that Texas and any other state could no longer do that, and it was enforced by federal troops across the nation. Texas Juneteenth was before the 13th Amendment. So the 13th Amendment solved this slavery issue, and it made it national because it was a constitutional amendment. And so a holiday recognizing just what Texas was doing is less than the 13th Amendment. If we're going to recognize the setting free of all Americans, then why not recognize the 13th Amendment? And that's my concern, because if we do our study a little bit more, I'm not saying that there's no value in the Juneteenth. I just think it comes short of what America has accomplished. By passing legislation, no state can force anyone into slavery. And the 13th Amendment, when you take the time to read the 13th Amendment, you see it's far better than recognizing a Juneteenth holiday because it's law.
And I appreciate that, but at the same time, Juneteenth recognized that all of United States slavery was abolished. Yes, it does, because we were not all free until Juneteenth came in. But at the same time, those are two holidays that are very passionate to people of color here in the town of Matthews, and a lot of people of not color, of people of color, but a lot of white people. Now, that's one thing I've learned, that you have to be able to address and make sure that we have not arrived here in America.
Let me, since this subject comes up, let me just share what I think is most important here about this. I also believe that we've got to be doing and working toward a unifying of the nation. And I think laws like the 13th Amendment was a unifying piece of legislation. If we were to have a holiday, now I know Juneteenth is a national holiday, MLK is a national holiday, but your question was asked in such a way that you asked, what do I think? And so I'm gonna tell you what I think. I think there are other ways to unite our nation. I think there are other ways to elevate and empower our nation. I also think, somewhat like what Mark had just mentioned, about finding ways to unify our nation. I would love to see, now this is just me, I would love for us to eliminate all of those holidays and call it America Day, where we unite as a nation and we recognize all of the people groups of America, not just one at a given time. I think that kind of common sense is healthy for America. Now, we keep talking about racial reconciliation, but then we separate ourselves in little silos. Now, I'll be honest with you, if we're going to take this approach, eventually, every people group in America will have their own separate holiday. Why not find a way that we begin to recognize all of the contributing ethnicities in America? Now, I support the holidays that are in place, but you asked the question, would I, and so on. So I'm saying there's a better way to unite our nation. And I think because we divide ourselves by ethnicities and all these other ways, I think it's not what unites us. And so I'm looking for ways to unite us instead of dividing us.
Leon, I appreciate that. But as a person, and this will be my last, the laws of the United States is not fair to everybody. And you should know that more than anybody else. You can pass the law, but this country, and I served 30 years as a highway patrolman in this country. I was the 18th black trooper hired in the state of North Carolina. It was not fair, and I could tell you I had to fight for my bootstrap.
I understand.
Just to be recognized. Now, there was laws that told North Carolina you can't do that. But they did not honor the law, and they're not honoring them today.
But
now they're there on the board, and I appreciate them being on the board, but they're not honoring them.
Well, can we be honest enough to say that no, we have not arrived as a nation, but we are still better now than we've ever been. We're making progress. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done. Okay, let me give you an example. I'm sorry. I know you okay.
I challenge you to ask my daughter that about if things have...
I hear your story and I respect your story, but see...
we have someone, and I do think we spend a lot of time on this, and this is something very passionate. We're going to let the mayor comment, but we do have a question, and looking at the hour, it's like 8:46 right now, so I know you...
I have a very quick comment.
Okay.
For Commissioner Tofano to say that the folks in Matthews voted for the bonds but really didn't want the projects that were voted for is ridiculous, in my opinion. And sir, if you have a way to pay for this improvement without raising taxes and without letting the bond, let's talk about it Monday, and let's do it Monday. Let's vote on it Monday. I commit to do it. Because we do not have the money to do it. And everybody is harping on raising taxes. You go find $1 million+ to do that and not raise taxes and not let the bonds. We'll do it Monday.
Okay. Are you okay? We move on to the next question. Or you had a quick comment?
For the Reverend. you sort of put the board, I'm sorry to criticize you, but you put us a little bit on the spot with some of these questions, you know, hard yeses, hard no's. Okay, I was on the board with a bond, transportation, and they tried to use it, even though they told the voters for South Trade. They wanted to use it over in McKee. So I want to look really hard at what did we tell the voters, where are we at with this stuff, because I'm not saying no. I absolutely agree it's a safety issue. I also had a discussion with Laura Budd, and she made a remark about that, about potential of state funding, just as an example. Imagine we got state funding, and that gave us money to use somewhere else on the bond. Okay. So I'm not saying no, but we weren't able to explain. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question.
This question is for Leon. This is your first term on the council, correct? Yes.
My first term, yes.
Okay. Having been on this board for only one term, what makes you think you have the knowledge or experience to take the place of Mr. Higdon?
That's a great question. Well, I think my fresh approach for the last 18 to 20 months as commissioner has helped me to bring in perhaps a fresh and new approach to problem solving. Sometimes being in a place so long, you can become entrenched in following certain patterns and certain methodologies, and this is the way we've always done it. My approach as the new mayor of Matthews come November the 4th will be trying and bringing together the elected commissioners, and together we solve problems that we've discussed tonight. We together will look for ways. See, what I'm purposing to bring as the new mayor is the best that Matthews had to offer, and together we solve problems. Together leading Matthews forward to solve the problems that are out there.
Excuse me, what is your background?
Background?
That enables you to take a town budget of $41 million or et cetera, whatever it is, and manage that. Did you vote to pass the current budget?
No, I did not, because I believe there were some other answers and solutions that we did not take fully advantage of. I felt like that we could have done a better job on that budget. And what qualifies me? Well, I have nearly 50 years of serving in public office in various areas.
In accounting or business?
No,
have you ever run a business? Have you ever hired or terminated employees?
Yes, I've run a ministry for 37 years, and I've been in private business of my own for years. I have served in public service as a law enforcement officer and as a U.S. Marine. I've served. Now, what you may not recognize is that actually the mayor is only one of 7 votes. One of 7.
I do realize that. I am Mr. Urban's wife.
Right.
I already know
and
that.
One of 7, and together we make those decisions. What the mayor actually does, in addition to being one of 7, is help lead the other 6 decision makers. He or she are to help bring those leaders together, and together they examine, and then they in turn work with the manager to do those things.
My question was, what do you
Excuse me, can I
bring?
interject something here? Folks, if you just want to stand up here and throw barbs at individuals, that's not...
I'm not throwing barbs.
Yes, you
I'm
are.
asking
Let me,
questions.
as the moderator, please allow me to interject. That is out of order.
Can we just be civil?
Well, I believe she is asking a question. I don't see it as that. So is he not answering your question? Do you have a direct question?
My question was, what is his background?
Okay, and I believe he's answered that as best as he could. He talked about running a private business and a ministry, and has served for more than
47 years.
and I heard that he said military as well. Okay.
Thank you for your service.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions as we're leading up? Okay, please come to the microphone. Thank you.
So, two questions actually. This is going to be for Mr. Young, Mr. Clayton, and Mr. Dedman. You all mentioned high taxes. So I want to know what you're going to cut to solve that problem. And then my second question is, Mr. Tufano, you don't think Juneteenth, it's not a uniting thing for Juneteenth. How is Chow Italia Matthews a uniting thing for Matthews?
So she specifically named 3 individuals for the first question and then 1 for the next question, Mr. Tufano, and then after that, we do have 1 more question. So if you all could answer that, please, with the first one.
Yes, I'll go. Yeah, so in my everyday life, me and my wife, we have a budget of our own that we have to operate with. I mean, sometimes that changes, but we have to, my pay has not been increasing throughout the years because just the state of the economy. So because of that, we have to cut certain things that we don't like in our lives, whether that's going out to eat all the time. But
I don't mean personally, I mean.
I know, that's what I'm getting to that. So if the budget and raise taxes, I would work as hard as possible to make sure that nothing was raised if possible, if the budget came through. No raising of the taxes.
How are you going to pay for it?
Well, I mean, we operate off a budget today, and I would make sure that we can try within their means. We work within the means of the money that we don't raise the tax rate for people, because we're already having to deal with the tax rates from Mecklenburg County to the eventual PAVE Act that might come through. I mean, that's how I would operate. I would work real hard to make sure we don't raise it. We work within our budget and our means. It's y'all's money. It's my money. It's all of our money up here. So I'll be good stewards of our money, just like I am at home.
And so there were 2 others that you named.
I'll give you a perfect example. The electronics budget that the commissioners get. It's over $3,000. I know, John, you tickled this one too. It's over $3,000, I think, at this point. I mean, that's just one example of basically it's $3,000 that the commissioners can use towards buying computers, laptops, whatever they want. And when they leave, it goes with them. That's our tax dollars going with them. Well, if you're on this board, most everybody here has a computer, and the fact of the matter is, the real reason for having it is because you need to check email, answer phone calls. We all have phones, we all have computers. That's just one place where that money could go back in towards a department that needs it badly. Because one of the things that the city of Charlotte, you work with the city of Charlotte, if you're the commissioner or a city council member, you're issued a city-based computer. When your term is done, you give it back. And it's designed to work within the system that the city has. It's not a going away prize. And that's just one little way. Now, that may not be a big deal.
Okay.
No.
There was one other person that she asked a question, and we could take the next person that you asked about solving.
Thank you for that adult interaction there, Mayor. I appreciate it.
I'm not looking at cutting the taxes, just so you know. My concern was the rate. We had literally the highest, what's called a revenue neutral. The managers have to actually report that by state law. We had a rep that basically passed a state law forcing that, because when revals were happening, they were hiding very large tax increases. The property tax on my house went up 48%, very high. That's going to push people out of their houses, and I made a remark about it. The other piece is, he's correct about the technology. We had one individual. This phone I actually bought at Walmart. It's about $120. We had a commissioner that's coming off the board who bought an Apple over $1,000. Bought a laptop Apple, also I think over $2,000. Taxpayers paid for it. I got a laptop that I bought for $550 not too long ago off of Amazon. It needs to be, the attitude of the spending needs to change. We had Lee Myers, Paul Bailey, Jim Taylor. We didn't have those kind of tax increases. Do not get me wrong. We had a bunch of problems with police department. We needed to give raises. So there was a component in there that needed to happen. What's happening is wants are taking over needs. That's where I'm going with this.
So we're going to try, if you could wrap this up. She had a question for Commissioner Tufano, and then I believe there was one more question. Sure, if you can make it.
Just very quickly, we had 4 people up here say they're undecided on the transit tax. That'll be one of the largest tax increases in the history of Matthews, and they're undecided, but they're concerned about a $3,000 laptop, which is 0.0001% of our budget. This transit tax, if passed, that they're undecided on, they don't know if they're for it or against it, is going to be a massive tax increase. You're going to get a 1% tax increase on everything that you buy that has a local sales tax on it. It's huge.
Mayor, didn't you vote for that?
Sir, Commissioner Tufano, we're going to move on so he can answer, and we get the next question, please.
Thank you for letting me get a plug-in for Chowatalia Matthews. I appreciate it. For all of you that don't realize it, this is the 3rd annual Chowatalia Matthews. It is not a town event. This is totally paid for by private citizens, by sponsors, and with the help of the Italian community. It is not a national holiday. It is not something that people are forced to celebrate. You come and enjoy yourself and immerse yourself in an incredibly wonderful experience. All of the vendors are either born in Italy or first generation. The music is absolutely outstanding. The entertainment all day long, classes on how to sculpt, how to make pasta.
Excuse me, Commissioner, I believe her question was, how is it not divisive? That's what
I'm answering that question.
Okay, well, we have another question.
Everybody is welcome to come. And it's not something that people are it's not on a calendar that you have to celebrate. It's there. So, and it's something we're very proud of, I'm very proud of, and I hope that it continues on in the future. Thanks.
All right, and we have one more question.
So, what do I do? Push it up, pick it up, down. Okay. I am Rhonda Larson. I am not a speaker. It's very unusual for me to get up here and have anything to say, but I had no idea what this get-together was about. And but since it was regarding race, I'll have one comment to say, and it's the second question was, how have your views on racial issues within the country and state evolved over time? Well, I don't think that there's anyone that could be sitting here and say that things have not changed.